Hey, welcome back, Rise Up Nation. Rise Up Nation, we're here for Rise Up in Real Estate live stream. This is just live, and I want to tell you a few things before we get started. Cyndi has had a little bit of a cough, so bear with us. It's not contagious via live stream. That's the good news. You won't catch a thing, but she's going to be a trooper and come on here with us. And I just rigged up. You can see. Watch me tilt my head. Watch. See the ring light? I finally figured out, I Googled this morning how to get my ring light not to reflect on my glasses. The only way to do it is to get the ring light really high and tilt it. So it's literally like hanging over my head like a chandelier.
I can't tell.
Yeah. So if I tilt my head, you can see it. But if I'm disciplined enough to just stay straight, I'm good. But if it falls during the show, it'll just be something to laugh at because it is literally teetering. I've got it propped up against the bag, so it'll be exciting. But real quick, Cyndi, I want to tell you what we do here. So we have the live stream is going live right now in a couple of different places, and we'll have people, maybe they'll, Vince, get a ticker going across the bottom.
Yeah.
So people introduce themselves. People will hop on and just ask random questions probably as we talk. We'll record this, of course. We're recording right now. And at the end of this, I'll send it to our editor. They'll edit it and put some thumbnails to it, and then we'll get a whole episode for our podcast that airs next Monday. So you'll get all of that collateral material too. I know we had trouble linking your socials to this today, but we can give you all the collaterals and you'll be able to post the podcast part that actually sounds super professional to all your socials at that point. But Vince, how are you? You doing good?
I'm good. I'm just excited for the post-production reels of the ring camera falling. Us having some good content to post.
Yes, we have bloopers. We got to have bloopers. That's what a show like this is for. Did you get to anything this weekend, Vince? Were you productive, or were you proactive, or were you reactive?
I was productive in the category of family and life. It was 78 and sunny, I think, Saturday. So you can guess where I was. That would be on the water, and just getting so much quality time that I forgot to even call Cyndi to set up her live stream. That's how deep into productivity I wasn't this weekend. But Cyndi, we're super glad that you're here. I know it's been a rough go, being a little sick, but I'm glad you're here and feeling better.
All good.
Yeah, so we are, when he mentioned the weather, like today it's 50 and rainy. So we're in the land of unpredictability in this time of year. March is, there'll be memes all over social media that says if you don't like the weather, just stick around. Like it's spring in the afternoon, it's winter in the morning. We're in coastal South Carolina and North Carolina. That's where our offices are located. So if you're coming to us and you haven't heard us before, that's where we are. But let me talk to Cyndi. Cyndi, thank you so much. I'm so happy. Last year in February, a year and a month ago, we had a long conversation, and I had no idea that I would want you on the show for this very topic when we had that conversation. We'll get into that in a minute. But tell the audience a little bit about who you are. You have a fascinating past. Tell us who you are, who you're married to, what you did in your past life. Let's learn a little bit about Cyndi.
Wow. It's a long history. I'll try and be brief. I was raised in Michigan, started my career actually in sales many, many years ago in newspaper advertising and then magazine advertising. Transitioned, got married, moved overseas. I lived in the Middle East. I lived in Saudi Arabia and landed a position with an American company in HR, recruiting people from around the world to come work in Saudi Arabia, which was a really interesting experience working with people from all over the world. Coming back, ended up in New York City, worked in the magazine industry again, and magazine promotion, working with packaged goods companies. And so now it was business to business sales. And then living on the East Coast, my husband and I were in Connecticut, and he is a musician. He was a musician, transitioned, worked at a university, and life was busy. We had 2 kids, and This was a pivotal moment. Our son said to us, when I'm 16, are you going to buy me a BMW? And we were living in Fairfield County, Connecticut, which is a fairly affluent area. And lots of kids had BMWs when they were 16. And my husband and I said, absolutely not. You're going to get a car like we did. You're going to go buy a $1,500 used car. Right. But it was that moment when my husband and I decided we wanted to change our life. So we put a plan in place, took us about 18 months, 2 years, and prepared ourselves, took classes, hired a consultant, put our home on the market, and we bought a country inn with 16 guest rooms and a fine dining restaurant in New Hampshire. And that was a dream, which Mason says sometimes is a nightmare. But we owned that inn for 15 years, and I worked at it for about 6.5, 7 of those years. And I did all the marketing, all the weddings, worked with the chefs and did all that. We had a big staff as well. But we kind of decided when our son was getting ready to go to college, how are we going to pay for this? So one of us had to go back, get a paycheck, and get health insurance. And we decided it was me. And that's when I went to work for Royal Caribbean. And I worked with them as director of trade sales for the Northeast US. And I did that for quite a while. Then we sold the inn, and we had vacationed in Myrtle Beach for years. And we had friends, one of the former bandmates that Mason had been in a band with lived here. And so we decided, when we sold the inn, we'll put everything in storage and we'll come to Myrtle Beach for the winter, rent a place on the ocean, and decide if we want to stay. We did that. We decided we wanted to stay. We started flipping houses together. And in the interim, I was a tour director and traveled around the world, but I really liked the real estate part of investing and flipping. And that was the entree to me getting licensed.
And you got licensed how long ago? 4 years? Was it 4 years ago?
Actually, I got licensed the very end of 2020. And in 2021 was when I, really started working at it. But then my former career, then as a tour director, they asked me to come back and do some work for them in 2021 when travel opened up again. So I wasn't really full-time at it. I was gone about 6 weeks doing tours in Iceland and other places. So I think it was September of 2022 when, you and I had talked well before that. You and I talked in 2020, but 2022, I think, is when I joined Remax Southern Shores. And then it was like, I am 100% into it, and I no longer was doing any tour directing.
Yeah. Wow. Vince, did you know all that about Cyndi?
Oh, you already know where my head's at. Yeah. We have world traveler, entrepreneur, marketing. We're running a hotel, I guess. This is a lot. That's pretty amazing.
I know. I should be really tired.
I'm just ready for your book. I'm just excited for your book.
Well, actually, Mason and I have been writing a book, and his chapter is punks, drunks, thefts, and other chefs I've known. And if you've ever worked in the restaurant industry, you know what we're talking about. That was always our biggest challenge, was that kitchen. But it was a fine dining restaurant, and you couldn't just throw it out, but it was a great experience. We loved doing it, and the guests were wonderful. And 15 years is a long time to run that kind of a business.
Yeah. And he's a musician. Did he play any music for the guests?
No. And here's what's interesting. Mason was a full-time musician with a band that traveled extensively, like half the year. They were a big show band, and he did that for years. When we got married, he went back to school. We had kids, and he put it down and didn't play music for over 20 years. Never played when we owned the inn. But when we moved here, he started playing again, and he has played literally every morning since we moved in 2016 to Myrtle Beach. And now he's living his best life. He plays out. And Mason he's a carpenter. He's really good at that stuff. So he still does some of that for people, and plays golf, plays tennis, and plays music out, and is living his best life, and good for him.
And you do a good job of posting when he's going to be places playing. So once we post your socials, if you guys follow Cyndi, she's always posted. Mason will be at bars, restaurants. You can go listen to a few songs. Pretty good stuff.
Yeah, I'm his unpaid marketing person. And he helps me. He helps me out too, putting signs up for me and stuff like that when I need help.
It's a pretty cool partnership. So I just am fascinated. We could probably spend the whole show talking about what you've done in the past. And that's actually what we're going to talk about, what you did last year. But I wanted to ask you this. I hadn't noticed this about your story, and I think I knew all those things because I actually looked up your inn, and I looked at pictures and all of that. I mean, I tell Mandy, and I joke that's what I think I would love that. I would love part of that. I'd probably hate part of it, but I would love having families coming in and meeting them. Every time we've gone to a bed and breakfast or an upscale place like that, I've really enjoyed it. But what you said to me is interesting. Like, I think I heard you say your son wanted a BMW when he was 16, and you said, no, that's not going to happen. And $1,500 is exactly what my mom and dad told me when I was a kid, and I think it was actually $1,600. It was a Camaro, and I had to carry jugs of water in the back seat because the radiator leaked the entire time I owned it. Like when I went to prom, I had all the water in the back seat and the girls in the front, which is funny. But you said, I think after you said that about your son, you said, we decided to change our lives. Mm-hmm. And you said you put an 18-month plan in place or 2-year plan. Why did you do that? Like, was it because you wanted to have more flexibility, or what was the impetus for making that change?
Yeah. I think for Mason and I, we'd always been very entrepreneurial anyway. But at that point, I was working in corporate America. He was working at a university, and, our life was very structured. I think the biggest thing for us was, time, wanting more time with our family. Our son at that time, when he asked about the car, he was 9 or 10. And, our thinking was, we're kind of in this routine, where we're working all these hours and we don't have enough free time. Little did we know that when you own a business like a country inn, you don't have a lot of free time, and you are the last person to get paid, but you're in it together. You're making it work. So I think for us, it was time. We also had a love of food, wine, and just the whole hospitality, the nature of hospitality. I think both of us really enjoyed that part of making people feel comfortable and being helpful. And that was the ideal environment to put those skills or loves into place, help, being a helper.
Yeah.
I think it's cool that you identified things you loved and were passionate about, and then built careers around that. Right. So often we decide to do things we may not love or whatever and call it a career. Mm-hmm. That kind of drives, the career drives the happiness per se, but you were choosing to do it in what we would, I think, call the right way. I
mean, and was it everything we thought it would be? No. Nothing ever is, right? There's always downsides to it, but there were a lot of wonderful things. We raised our son. He was 10 when we moved. We moved to a town that had 4,000 people in New Hampshire. He rode his bike to school. He played pond hockey. He, skied. And when he got to the top of the chairlift, he could walkie-talkie us and say, come get me. I mean, he had a different childhood than we would have had we stayed where we were. And he's 34 now, and he has all of his friends from when he was 10 years old. They are all still friends. They live all over, but those relationships, I mean, when Mason and I look at what do we get out of that? Could we have taken that same amount of money and invested it in certain other things and made more money than we did on that business? Absolutely, we could have. But what we always land on is what we ended up providing for our child. Our daughter was away at school already, but our son was still little. And so that lifestyle change affected him in a very positive way. So we always say, oh, we could have made more money doing something else. But then we always go back to, but look what our son got out of it. And he talks about his childhood as being idyllic.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense to me. The more I hear about you, Cyndi, like one thing I'm fascinated by with you is that you connect with people pretty quickly and pretty well. But I think it has a lot to do with two things. Your mindset is not many people are service oriented by nature, and you might be one of the few that I've met that just kind of interests you. And you've just had a lot of experiences. It's fascinating to talk to you, and I'm sure I can imagine your client base is fascinated by that. Do you share a lot of that with your group, like your past?
Well, here's what's interesting. And I've always believed a couple of things about working in sales, customer service, even business to business sales. Couple of things I always remember. Number one is storytelling. Sometimes, especially in real estate, you don't always know how much experience someone has buying and selling a home. You could be, initially talking to someone that has tons of experience, and you don't want to offend them by telling them something they already know. But you need to convey the information. And one of the best ways to do that is through a story, or by saying, you probably already know this, but I had a client one time, and this is what happened. It was very interesting. And you tell the story. And to me, I think storytelling is a very valuable way of connecting with people. And I have used that a lot in every part of my career. When I was a tour director, you tell stories for a living. But in real estate and any other kind of sales, I found it to be effective. And then, I don't know, I guess the other thing that I learned really early on from somebody in sales who was brilliant and a mentor to me, he said this: every time you're talking with someone about something you would like them to do, whether it's buy something or come over to your way of thinking, you should always pretend that they have a hat on, and that hat says, what's in it for me? And I have never forgot that. Like, what is the person on the other end trying to accomplish, and how can I meet the need? And then the third thing is being generous with my time. That is a really big deal in real estate, I think, because there are a lot of agents that, they're really busy and they have really big careers because they've been at it a long time. And so they don't have a lot of time. When I started, that's what I had, was time. And so I was trying to be very generous with my time when people were first saying, gee, I'd like to move there, but I don't know where, I don't know how, what do I do? And sometimes that was, 12 months of conversations on social media or text or email. So for me, I think part of the service is being generous with my time.
Yeah, I love all of that. See Lisa from Atlanta. Hey, Lisa, I just want to say hi to Lisa. I'm sure she's going to have some good questions for you, Cyndi, as we roll on. So let's dig in a little bit, if it's okay. You touched on a few things right there that we're probably going to elaborate on. I want to talk about storytelling in a minute, but you just had a pretty remarkable year in 2024. I heard a statistic at the RE/MAX convention last week. I think I understood it correctly, that said 74% of agents realtors last year didn't even sell one home.
Wow.
Which is I thought that was way higher than it should have been. I would have believed half, but not 74% that are members of National Association of Realtors. And you had what I would consider like a record-breaking year for yourself. You've been in business, like, let's just say 4 to 5 years, but last year was your best year, right?
It was, yes.
Just to continue setting the stage, you're looking at a year where sales overall nationally were the least since they've been since 1993.
That's right.
And then you're having your best year yet. So I'm excited to hear why and how.
Yeah.
Well, interestingly enough, Tad, if you remember, we had a conversation at the end of 2023, or maybe it was the very beginning of 2024, because my 2023 was not stellar. It was bad. It was worse than 20. I had a really good year in 2022, but 2023, it was not good. And, you know, that was the beginning of the higher interest rates, even getting closer to 8 at some point. I was in the middle of buying a home, and my early conversation with someone else said, "Oh, you had a lot going on." And I kind of hung my hat on that for 2023 a little bit until 2024 came along, and I had a lot going on too. So I'm not buying that excuse, right? I didn't put in the effort or figure out how to transition to a different time period. And I figured it out in 2024. And how I figured it out was this. Resales were not selling because interest rates were so high. So 2 things were working: cash buyers and new construction. And new construction primarily because the builders were having the same kind of challenges we were. And so even if they baked the dollar amounts into the price of the home, they were giving tremendous incentives. You could use the incentives to buy down the rate. You could use the incentives to go to closing with no money other than your down payment. And so I kind of tried to focus more on that area. And I will say that going back to that generosity of time paid off for me. And here's a good example. A woman that I had been working with who came with some friends to look at one specific development of new construction down here in 2023. She couldn't afford that, but we looked at some other options. And she still couldn't figure out, how can I sell my house on the East Coast and move down here? I need the money from this to do. And I kept in touch with her, kept talking with her, kept telling her, listen, when you're ready, I'm here. We'll figure it out. There's other options beside that development that have everything you need. Well, finally, she took the leap, came down. She came down with her sister. And she said, well, my sister wants to buy a house too. I said, okay, that's great. So we looked at multiple places. So she bought a house. Her sister bought a house. And then her sister's best friend, who she referred, bought a house. And then the sister's best friend's adult son and daughter-in-law bought a house. So 4 transactions from that one conversation that started well over 12 months ago, but the generosity of time and just like, you know, it comes out in the wash to me, like saying, somebody might say, why would you waste your time on them? They're not ready. My phrase has always been, I'm here when you're ready. I'll still be here. Don't worry. I'm not one of those kinds of people that's going to say, all right, are you ready to make an offer? It's like, when you're ready, I'm here. I keep giving information, but so there was 4 transactions from that one person. So that was a bonanza, and they were all new construction. And then that same person has just referred another client to me, who's also looking to buy a new home. The other thing was, Tad, when you and I sat down at the end of 2023, I was very disheartened. Um, I was like, I had a horrible year. The award level that I won, I was ashamed of because I had exceeded that the year before. And I was like, when we had our gala, I didn't even want to get up there. But in the end, when we had that conversation and I asked you, maybe I should be buying leads, maybe I should be doing something different. And you looked at me, and I had done an analysis of everything I had done in the previous 2 years. And you said, you should do the same thing again. Do you remember that? Just focus on that. And, remember, I was hanging my hat on, I had a lot going on, built a house, and it was garbage, right? I just need to do the work. And I did the work in 2024. I think the other thing was a generation or a group of people that seemed to gravitate to me. Maybe it's because of my age, but they tended to be people who were retiring and looking for that home to retire to, trying to lower taxes, and coming from markets where real estate was much higher value than here, so they could buy so much more in our market. So I tried to focus a lot on that group of people, knowing that that's where it had success with before.
Yeah. So, man, that is a sermon worth listening to that you said in that mouthful there. So many things. I want to ask you a quick, real, like a speed round question. Where did that lead come from initially that referred those four, and the most recent one? Where did that initial lead come from?
Facebook.
Okay. I thought so. I just wanted to make sure. And we're going to talk about the work that you did, like what kind of work, so that we can get specific on that. But I want you guys to hear what she's saying here. Like, I remember that conversation very well, and I didn't really want to even have it because I knew you were discouraged from the previous year's gala. Like, I knew, and I knew you had a lot going on. And I thought, I did say, that does have an effect because it can distract you from the work that you need to be doing, right? So that's the gold in what you just said, is that year you got distracted, which everyone would. You built a brand new home. You had to get the financing in a terrible market.
Yeah.
You did a lot of things. But if we can be frank, Cyndi, you were sitting down with me in that conversation saying, should I continue or not? Like, you're at the point where you and Mason have to decide, and you've done this throughout your whole lives. Now that I hear your whole story, is this really what I want to keep doing?
Yes.
Right? I mean, because you felt like I'm better than this, and you are. I don't need to work all that and go through all that for that amount of money. I just don't. And I don't know what your financial situation is. You probably don't need to work, if I'm smart, based on what you've done over your whole life. But that was a really hard conversation for me to have, because I saw someone, and Vince, you can see this now that we're talking to her in even more detail. The sky's the limit for you. And I've believed that since I met you in 2020, I think it was.
Yeah.
Back then. I was hard for me to say those things, but you were open to it. Like, you called the meeting. That's a lesson that people should learn, right?
I did. Yeah.
Vince, do you have anything you want to add or anything? Because I've got a couple of questions I want to ask, but I don't want to steal your thought.
No, I'm gonna let you keep driving and ask those questions. I do think it's cool. I'm gonna brag a little bit. You're going from that conversation you guys are referencing to last month. Cyndi was being featured in Realtor magazine, correct? For some Facebook
Real Producers, yeah.
Real Producers magazine, based on her success. So just for anyone listening who might feel like they're in that slump, everything's relative, right? To if you're in a slump or not. Okay, it's not about the actual number; it's about how your life feels. But Cyndi had a chance to spiral deeper into that, or look at herself in the mirror and take extreme ownership and say, sure, I was busy, but everyone's busy and everyone has things going on. I didn't do enough. And that's where this started, was that true self-reflection. So just want to make that point there. We can't miss that. That's where the trajectory changed. But back over to you, Tad.
Yeah, you had to.
And by the way, that took some time to admit that. Because that's hard when you go, you start out saying, oh, these are the reasons that I failed. And, some people might look at it and go, that's not a failure, but it was to me. But you start out with, oh, this excuse, that excuse. And then at the end you go, yeah, I really didn't give it the attention it deserved. And that's why the result was what it was. Even though it was a tough year and interest rates were high, I figured out how to do it a year later.
Yeah.
So, it was just self-reflection, which is awfully hard. It really is, to look at yourself and go, yeah, I didn't do enough.
Yeah. And so what we've talked about this on this show before, and I've done videos, I'm very fascinated by leading indicators and lagging indicators. Lagging indicators is the result. Like you get a number. Hey, I did this in 2023 or 2024. And you go, hey, I'm really excited. Oh man, I'm really bummed. Where if we could take our attention and focus on the leading indicators, exactly what you did, and say, hey, the result's going to come, but I'm going to focus on the day-to-day, the activities that you do in order to make the lagging indicator increase. Because here's the cool thing and the bad thing. You got that trophy, too small, 2023 trophy. You couldn't change one thing about that. Not one. At that moment. All you could change was what the trophy was going to look like in 2024. And you couldn't change that by any other way but doing the things. And you realize that yourself. That was the beautiful thing. And you dug back in. And I mean, tell me I don't want you to talk about the amount of money necessarily that you made last year, because that's not really anybody's business but yours and ours, since we know. But what was the percentage increase, real quickly, Cyndi, from 23 to 24? Just ballpark, like the money, the gross commissions 23 to gross commissions 24.
Boy.
Just say doubled or tripled, or
was it double?
Oh no, it was no. Let me see. I'm going to tell you. Bear with me. I got to use the calculator on this one.
There's a couple extra commas in 20.
No, it was like 3.5, almost four times.
Okay.
It was a lot.
Yeah. And I hope you're hearing what she's saying here. And I'm going to ask her now. We want to dig in to what activities work for you. I think you could do a whole class for us too on storytelling. The
people are going to want to know how, Cyndi. How do I quadruple my business? Obviously, we have to credit some of that to your mindset because it was different. Yep. So one answer has got to just be the amount of time you put in, correct?
Yeah, I mean, I have a home office, and I come to this office every day. Every day I sit at this desk. Most days I even put my name tag on, which is, even if I'm not going out, I usually put my name tag on, which sounds stupid, but it's a mental thing that I am at work, right? Mm-hmm. And my desk is for real estate work. I have a big whiteboard, and I have listings, buyers, contracts, possible opportunities, timing. I mean, it's a big board. And I don't like it when there's a lot of white space on it. But for me, it's a lot about the discipline. No day, you can't have a routine in this business. I know people talk about it. Oh, I'll time block. I'll do this. I'll do that. Some days you have a listing appointment in the morning. Some days you have a closing. You can't. But every day, at some point in my day, I am doing follow-up with people. These could be email, could be a phone call, could be a card. But I would say that 5 days a week, I'm doing that. And it's to people who already had bought a home or sold a home with me, and people that I would like to work with or are thinking about moving here, and to other agents as well. I think I gave 10 or 12 referrals this year, maybe. Not all of them materialized, but Some of them did, and I received referrals as well. So I feel like building relationships, not just with potential clients, existing clients, but also with agents is really important too. And as a result of R4 last year, I am in a mastermind group based on a lunch I set up. And after the lunch, we were all like, hey, we really connected. Why don't we do a mastermind? We meet every other Monday for about 1 hour, 10 minutes. And we have agents, I think we're up to like 12 or 14 from all over the country.
These are agents from within the brand that you know that you work in, correct?
Yes, they're all RE/MAX agents, yes, because I met them at our annual convention. But that's been really interesting for me because on an every other week basis, we'll have a different topic. And I learn something every other week from other agents. Some are really, really successful. Some are, a couple are on the newer side. Most of them are pretty experienced. But that was new for me in 2024. And that started right after R4 last year.
So you're on a daily basis, you're sitting at your desk. And I love Brian Buffini said at our conference this year, were you there for his session, Cyndi? I know you had to come home early. So he did the opening. I guess you left Monday. So he did Monday afternoon. He stood up and said, don't fool yourself. If you call yourself working from home and you don't take a shower, you're just home.
Yeah.
You're not working from home. So putting your name tag on, getting makeup on, and going to work is what you've done.
Yeah.
Did you work virtually before COVID? Part of your past is you're used to that, right?
Yeah. When I worked for Royal Caribbean, although I was on the road about 4 days a week, traveling from like Maine to West Virginia with my team, but we were remote. So I always had a home office, did Zoom calls, conference calls, wrote reports, all that stuff. So yeah, I think it takes real discipline. And for people who have never worked for themselves as a 1099 employee, there might be a tendency to just, stay in your pajamas and, do a load of laundry and watch Netflix. I can't do it. None of that happens when I am working from my office. It's like either I'm working or I'm not. I don't mix it up during my day when I'm here.
Yeah.
And that's why I have a separate space, because when I'm in this space, it's work.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's what athletes do. Lawton has a question. How you leaned into new construction specifically. Was there anything specific you did, or were you just being more intentional?
Really great question. So a couple of things. I found that going to new construction developments, building a relationship with those sales agents, believe it or not, I had a sales agent refer 2 clients to me, and both of them bought houses. And why did she refer them to me? Because they said, we want you to take us around and show us the area. And we want to learn about the town because we're coming from out of state. And she's like, I don't have time for that. You need a buyer's agent. And she referred them to me. So I think that's pretty unusual, but really trying to become an expert on at least 2 or 3 of these new construction areas, because often those folks that are looking to move here, those big developments do a lot of online marketing as well. And so they'll ask about them. They'll say, what about Heather Glen? What about Bridgewater? I want to know about Del Webb. I want to know about this one or that one. There begins the conversation. Now I can talk a little bit about, oh, well, this one uses hardy board, but this one uses vinyl, or this one, they have a great reputation, or depends on the construction manager, or, the lot sizes are smaller here. So how you lean in is being educated, number one, but also taking cues from what people are asking about. And for me, it was also on social media. And sometimes, on social media, sometimes people say, oh, I'm looking for a real estate agent in Myrtle Beach. Oh, we have thousands, right? And they'll all jump on there. But what I found better for me from the beginning was that when someone asks a question, I answer the question. So instead of saying, here's my card, when you're ready to buy, call me. And we have some other agents in our brokerage that are really, really very good at this as well. But you answer the question. Shannon Sellers, she's very, very good at this. So when someone says something about, well, I'm curious about the school system in the area, I have 2 kids and one of them has special needs, and what should I do? I would usually just say, I've sent you a private message. And in the private message, I would give them a link so they could check out the school system rankings, because I'm not the expert, but someone else is. So here's the information. And by the way, if I can help, let me know.
Yeah, you're leading with value.
That's what I'm trying to do.
Starting that conversation off with some kind of positive ad to their hat, that their hat says, what's in it for me?
What's in it for me?
What's in it for me is giving the answer.
Being more generous with my time, right? Like, I could look at that and go, oh, you're not ready to buy. You still have a house in Pennsylvania to sell. Really the wrong attitude. Because a woman who contacted me, we actually went back and looked after we closed on her house. She contacted me back in, I want to say 2021, and was telling me she had a house in Pennsylvania to sell and wanted to buy one here. And her husband had this kind of a job. And we started conversations, and she closed on her house last year here. But, it took 2 years. But anyway, back to Lawton's question, is really about knowing, if you focus on an area like in Carolina Forest or maybe in Sockasty, and there are new developments being built there, man, go there, learn all about them, know the different models, be an expert.
I think it's worth mentioning. Sorry, Cyndi, I didn't mean to cut you off. I think it's worth mentioning a few things for law. Nick also said relationships with on-site sales reps and construction are so underrated, Lawton. So you could probably connect with him too. I think, what would you say, because you are a North Myrtle Beach gal, right? I mean, you spend your time in your market. Is it important to be a niche expert or niche expert like an area, or do you think you need to be more broad-based right now? I don't know if there's an answer. Because if I say, like, Lawton, go learn about new homes developments, it's a little bit overwhelming. Like, there's a ton of them. Should you pick an area, you think?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
For me, if someone comes to me and says that they'd really like to explore Pawleys Island, that it's a great location and they vacation there and they want to learn more about it, I'm not the gal. Our coastline is 60 miles. And, I want to be able to tell people as much as I can about what it's like to live in an area. I don't really know that area. So I'm going to refer it to a really great agent in our brokerage that I love and respect, who's going to do a good job for them there. For me, North Myrtle Beach, Little River, the northern part of Myrtle Beach, and Carolina Forest, I feel very comfortable with those areas. But when we get much further south, or in North Carolina, which is right on the border here, I would refer them to another agent out of respect for the information that they need. They're going to get better information from someone else. But, if I'm Lawton and I want to focus on new construction, then I'm going to find those that are in the geography that I most often service. I'm not going to try and spread myself too thin.
Yeah, I think it's another point onto that note, Tad. I'm hearing a lot here in regard to the new construction stuff. So if you're an agent out there and you're just visiting new constructions when you have an active buyer to show that neighborhood to, you may already be a little behind. I'm pretty confident Cyndi drove those neighborhoods, shook those reps' hands, looked at those layouts while making $0 for it, because we like to say luck is when preparation meets opportunity. So now someone chimes in on Facebook and asks about Del Webb. Well, guess what? Cindy's never sold one in there, but she knows all about it because she's done the research and the education. So instead of just posting a card, she directs message everything from her perspective as an agent, not an on-site agent. So, maybe a little less bias, gives that client that value piece and says, I know all about this, but she learned that for free, right? And it didn't get paid anything at the same time. And now she was ready, right? So that's something to consider if you're looking out there. What do I do with my hands? And new construction is hot in your market and you're going to pick your area. Go learn about every single thing about all of them. I personally did this to look for properties to buy, right? I knew the on-site agents, I knew the layouts, I knew what I wanted, and it works out. But you got to do some free work as well. If you're just waiting to meet those people when you have a client, you're probably missing some in between.
Well, especially if you're a new agent, what do you have? You have time. So use the time to educate yourself. And, that's what I did. I will say the other thing that has really helped me this year, 2024, is I did build a house in my neighborhood and I became an expert in my neighborhood. So much so that I have to remind them, I do not work for the builder. The builder works for the builder. I work for you. But as a result, I have sold a lot of houses in my neighborhood. And I will tell you one other thing that I did that has given me a lot more exposure to my neighborhood as it develops. There's going to be 569 homes built here. Right now, there are about 210 maybe that are occupied and a bunch under construction. I formed a travel group. Why? Because I love to travel. I have a travel background as a professional. And this is a great way for me to meet my neighbors, build relationships. So I don't ever have to talk to them about real estate, but they know what I do. And, if we're on a trip, we have a wine trip coming up to North Carolina. We're promoting a trip to Ireland next year. When and if they are ready to sell or refer, I hope they'll think of me.
So, golly, there's
so much.
I mean, I want you, Lawton, I hope you just heard that about neighborhood, FYI, but I'll just say that as your dad. Anyway, proactivity is the thing. Like, you're being so proactive with what you do. Cyndi, are you still there, Cyndi?
I am.
Okay.
Yes.
We lost Vince for a second. I don't know where he went, but I want to make sure. Sue O'Shea, thanks for being here. Sue says she's in Pawleys Island if you need some love down there.
Right.
But the proactivity thing is what gets me. Like, we're so used to, those of us that have been in the business for a while, and even you, short time, it used to be a take and order business. We didn't really need to do proactive stuff. Those that did really made a lot of money, but those that didn't still made a lot of money. I mean, there was multiple offers. Clients were calling us. The rates were low. It was literally a feeding frenzy, and we couldn't figure it out. We got lazy. We got a lot of things. But what you did was you recognized, hey, I've got to do. Let me see if I need to let him in. Let me let Vince back in.
Hey, sorry about that.
That's all right. You decided that you're going to go to work and you're going to do this block of things. Like, I'm going to go do a proactive thing. That new construction thing where you go and build relationships. Nobody was doing that in 2021. Nobody.
Didn't have to.
Right? But it's not now is a business where you have to, it's a long game. It's a long play. I did a video a few days ago about this where there's billions of dollars being lost by people just throwing away a lead when they aren't ready right now. If they're not ready, they don't go in a drip campaign, or they don't go in Cyndi just said a little while ago, I'm going to send you a card or a note. They just go in a round file probably, or just out of our minds. Mm-hmm. So what you've done is you've just learned how to I wanted to talk a minute about, you've learned how to, used to call it generating leads, but I want to talk about generating relationships, because I think that's a better way to put it. What are the things, if you had to build pillars of business, where your business came from in 2024? Maybe we've touched on them all, but what are they, and how do you actively stay engaged with those?
Well, I do think that and I've said this many times, and you know it, it's an exponential business. And so, relationships, if you do a good job and you don't just do a transaction, but you build a relationship with a buyer or seller, that person is going to refer other people to you. But not if at the closing table, that is the last time they hear from you. Then, there are some statistics that talk a lot about that. The percentage of people that would use the agent that they bought their home for to sell or buy another. And it's a low number because a lot of people don't stay in touch. I've been taught and learned through others in my brokerage that is a valuable way of sustaining the business over time by building relationships with people who already did business with you. They know you, they love you, they trust you, and you want to sustain that relationship so they'll refer others to you. So I would say that definitely was a pillar for my business in 2024. And the other pillar was, really keeping alive relationships that hadn't turned into transactions yet, but there was the hope and the goal by both myself and the potential buyer or seller that they would. So, there's two areas. One was referrals, and one is people that they're in the on deck circle. Let's put it that way. They're not quite up to bat yet, but I'm wanting to help them, coach them, and guide them, get them ready to step up.
What does somebody have to tell you to not be in the on deck circle? For you to kick them out of the stadium altogether? How do you know when that person isn't ready?
You mean isn't ready at all?
Ever going to be like, you won't spend any more time?
I changed my mind. We're going to move to Hilton Head. We don't want to do Myrtle Beach. I'm like, okay, good luck. And I know a great agent in Hilton Head. May I refer you? Why not? Unless they already have someone there. Usually when someone tells me that, if someone tells me, I don't think I can afford it, I don't think I have enough money, I don't know how I can figure out the money, then I actually ask them another question, which is, have you talked to a lender? And they say, I looked at Rocket Mortgage or whatever. And I'm like, hold up. You want to talk to a local lender. Let them, and I always say to them, listen, I stay in my lane. I am not a lender, but I trust certain lenders who will do a really good job of helping you figure out what you can afford and why, or what you need to do to get in position. And then that, that's not a no, that's I can't figure it out. And my answer is, let me help you. And then I refer them to a lender, and with usually good results. If someone else tells me, I don't want to sign a buyer's broker agreement because I'm just looking around. I'm like, okay, I'd like to establish a relationship with you so I work for you and have a fiduciary responsibility to you. And, by the rules, I can't show you property without that, but we could figure that out if you just want to have it for a day or a week or whatever. I want you to be comfortable with me. So I try and have in my arsenal all of the rebuttals. But like you said, who's absolutely not going to buy? I'm okay with that. I don't get my feelings hurt. There's plenty of opportunity and I'm not desperate. I think people can feel that if you are, desperate for a deal. I remember my roommate at R4 last year, she was telling me that was in March last year, right? The beginning of March, I think it was. And I remember her telling me how much business she had already. And I said, my first closing isn't until April, but my business was so end loaded to, like 7 closings in July. It was all April on, but it was mostly all that work I had done in the fourth quarter and the beginning of that year that paid off.
Yeah, the leading and lagging indicators again. And I hope you guys just picked up what she just gave us, a master sales class in understanding what the no actually means. Every time she heard no in that description she just gave in 2 minutes, she had another question or another answer. You're the lady, Cyndi, that I love to tell this story that somebody walked into what's the big department store? Oh, Macy's in New York City, and asked to buy tires. And they didn't say we don't sell tires. They said, let me give you the number of someone who will take great care of you at a tire sales place. Right. So pay attention to what she's saying here. Somebody tells, I don't want to be in the area. This is why you want to be in a brand that's worldwide. Like, I'm going to move to Connecticut. Hey, guess what? I have a connection for you there. And you're still their realtor. You don't know what's going to happen in the long term, and you're going to get a referral. And the cool thing is Cyndi's doing it because it's best for them. Let me stay in this relationship with you because I care and serve you. Right. And then somebody says, I just can't afford it. And Rocket Mortgage told me that. Take it one step further. Let's let you talk to somebody that I know that is good at this. So I love that. I mean, you probably get half more transactions doing that than if you just take no and move on to the next person.
Yeah. And I think that's back to generosity of time. I could just say, okay, great. Nice talking to you. But yeah, I don't know. I don't give up. I think I don't want to be annoying, but I want to pull all the threads until there's no more to pull. And then it's like, okay.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, you've heard. Oh yeah, look, Sue says she also has her license in Connecticut. She wants to be your girl in Connecticut also. Thanks, Sue. Thanks for making our point. She's probably going to get licensed in, Zimbabwe too. There.
There's one thing we can't overlook. Sorry for the technical difficulties. Cyndi said she sent about a dozen referrals last year, which tells you she's connected right there. There's somebody, I know there's a long list of agents who would watch this episode, Cyndi, and say, nah, no, that's not real. That doesn't work. You haven't paid for an immediate lead. You know what I mean? It's not that you're on the hunt for, if we all sold houses to just the person we met that could buy today, none of us would make any money, right? But agents forget to think that way. They think if it's not right now, not checking account, direct deposit, I'm not even entertaining it, right? Because I'm in the business to make money. That's so wrong. That's so twisted. You have to be patient. Not to mention you pivoted when the market required you to, and that pivot into new construction could be anything. That could be into foreclosures. That could be into cash buyers.
Right.
In Northern Virginia, where I used to sell, that would be shifting into government employees because they have the stipends. You can pivot anyway, but what you did was you displayed patience the whole time, and you focused on the relationship patiently. All right, not just generating the relationship and expecting a lead that day. And then you gave out business, right? Which, as we know, the universe works reciprocally. So that's going to come back. I don't know if that's a real word, but I had to throw that out there.
Yeah. And the referrals, we're in the way that I am operating my business in the last couple of years. Most of my buyers are from out of state, and most of them already have real estate to sell. And so, if they come to us first before they start the exploration with an agent in their market, then I'm in a position to refer them to a great agent that I know personally. And I mean, I think that's the value of our network. Not only my mastermind group, which, I can put them in touch with an agent in New Jersey, New York, Pennsylvania, Hawaii, Arizona. These are people that I know and that I've done business with. And so if I can build a relationship with someone that they trust me here to help them with this transaction, I have a better chance of having them trust my recommendation for an agent that can help them sell their property back in, Arizona or Connecticut or New York or wherever.
Yeah, that's excellent. I want to close with this. Cyndi, thank you for being on the show. You've been way more than I expected, but I'm not surprised. You have been all along. I wanted to share this. This is your next business challenge, Cyndi. Your next thing, because I know you're thinking about your next thing already. 3 years ago in the United States, the top salesperson by gross commissions in the whole United States was a lady in Texas who never put one person in her car or never went into one living room. She did every bit of her business 100% repeat referral business, like farming out to other agents, even in her own town. She never took anybody in her own. She referred it within her own office.
Wow.
And she had such a network within the RE/MAX system that she would place people all over, and she never once went out of her home office or off the island she was sitting on or her yacht or wherever.
It's amazing.
So think about that. I mean, we love people, but when you get to the point where you don't love people anymore, start referring to other people that love people.
Right.
So Cyndi, thank you so much. How can somebody find you? I'm hoping that somebody wants to find out more about you. How can they find you the easiest?
My email is cindysellsmyrtlebeach@gmail.com, or they can probably just Google my name, Cyndi Cobb, RE/MAX Myrtle Beach, and my website will come up. And I'm also on Facebook as Cynthia Cobb, and Instagram at Cyndi at the Beach.
Awesome. Notice Cyndi is CYNDI. You see that, right?
It is.
So
yeah.
Pay attention to that. Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Sue. Thank you, Lawton. Thanks for all of you, Nick, all of you that were out there listening. Cyndi, it's been a gold mine. People, if they don't take something away from today, they're not listening. So God bless you.
Thank you.
Thanks for all your contributions. Thanks, Vince. Have a good one, buddy.
Okay. Bye-bye.
See you, Rise Up Nation. We'll see you next time.
Well, hey, that's a wrap, folks. Thank you so much for listening to Rise Up in Real Estate. If you liked hanging out with us today, please find us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube at Rise Up in Real Estate. Also, follow us right now on your favorite podcast host to hear more episodes. We really appreciate you spending some of your time with us. And until next time, let's do each other a favor and all help each other rise up.